Well, there's a pivotal scene where Mary comes to the house of her friends who are often hosting her, played by Jim Broadbent and Ruth Sheen, who you worked with before.
Yeah, I've worked with them both before. Yeah,
and she's got a bit of a crush on their son, Joe, and he brings for the first time, and it's a surprise, a new girlfriend.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you know when you walk into that house?
No idea. Which is why when you do, I mean, obviously, I hasten to add that when we shoot the film, we're not improvising on camera. Once we shoot it, it is a piece of work that is set, absolutely set and rock solid.
A script.
Yes, but we don't ever happen to see it written down. But it is. We say the same thing every take, and otherwise you'd have to have multiple cameras, and you couldn't improvise on film. It would be messy. The dialogue would be not tight. It would be repetitive, pausey. You know, it wouldn't work. So we know what we're saying when we shoot it. But we do all these major improvisations, and closer to the time of shooting a particular scene, we might improvise around that scene several times, and then out of that Mike will choose kind of like the best bits, if you know what I mean, and he'll edit it and make it a scene that gels and has a dramatic narrative that's good. But the first time we did an improvisation that covered that scene, which I believe is in the autumn section of the film, when Mary is going round for tea on Sunday. All that Mary knew was that Jerry had said to her, "Do you want to come round for tea on Sunday?" And Mary says, "Yes, of course, she'll go." But unbeknown, of course, to Jerry, her son turns up with the girlfriend and he surprises them, and so of course Mary doesn't know that Joe is going to be there, not least of all with his new girlfriend. So yes, when we did the original improvisation, when Mary turned up, she first sees Joe. You know, it's great. She enjoyed Joe's there. You know, I don't know how seriously she thinks a relationship is viable, and not because of the age difference, but just because it's a bit inappropriate, because it's her friend's son. You know, it's kind of dodgy territory because of her relationship with Jerry and Tom to be seriously thinking about a relationship with their son. But anyway, she arrives and she meets his girlfriend, and the first time we did that, of course it was a complete surprise, as it was a surprise for me and Mary the first time when I turned up for the final scene in the winter, when she knocks on the door and Ronnie answers the door. You know, I had no idea he was going to answer the door. I had no idea really who he was, although she knew of him because she knew that Jerry had had time off work to go to her brother-in-law's wife's funeral. So, but yeah, that is all set up like that, so that when those original improvisations happen, what comes out of them can be trusted, is organic, it's a real reaction. And so, of course, then you have to repeat it, because that's the nature of acting and that's the nature of filming. But the first time it happens, it is a surprise to the characters, and so they react accordingly.
So, do you think that the power that this movie has and that this character has is that it reminds us of how often terrible it is for someone to be isolated and alone, and how much that's happening in our culture now?
I mean, probably like you, I know plenty of women who are over 40 and on their own and without children, and they're very happy with that situation. In fact, that's what they want. They don't want children, and they don't necessarily want a partner, and that's great. But there are a lot of people who aren't. There are a lot of people who are lonely at all ages. You know, in a way, the loneliness aspect of Mary is universal and is not to do with her age. It's just for her it's particularly poignant because she has reached that time in her life where she is looking forward and, you know, thinking about how she's going to spend the last 30 odd years, whatever, of her life. And it's looking like a bit of a black hole, you know. And the truth is that with Mary, which you don't find out everything about because you don't need to, but you find out enough, is that most of her life has been like that as well. You know, that it's not like she's had a great life and suddenly the future isn't looking quite so rosy. You know, the past has been pretty awful as well. Her childhood was pretty awful, but you never find out about that in the film. You know, so every decade of her life has been pretty awful, really. So she looks to the future as being more of the same, so that is inevitably a grim view for her.
And yet she has this extraordinary something coming out of her that you want to embrace.
Well, she's as she says herself, she's a glass half full kind of girl. You know, whenever she's in a situation with people, she wants to make the most of it. Now, often it's misguided and it's misjudged, and you know, she drinks too much, and so she gets drunk, so she can't actually be in the moment anymore because she's drunk. Or she flirts inappropriately. But, you know, I think it's good that through all of that, you can see that she's actually a nice person. She's not a bad person, and she certainly doesn't deserve the kind of shit life that she's had. You know, she really deserves something better. But of course, you know, she does step out of line a few times, which is why Jerry, in the latter part of the film, feels that she needs to distance herself from Mary because she was rude to her son's girlfriend. No two ways about it. She was rude to her. But because I think the audience are kind of understanding of Mary by that point, you kind of manage to forgive her